Hello to all the listeners. My name is Senamile Zungu. I am here on the Digital Marketing Show, excited to be a guest. Thank you, Simanya, for having me. Today, we will be digging into digital marketing and data and how the two link. And we're excited and we hope that you enjoy this conversation.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the introduction that I have to say. And it's a real honor to actually have you on this podcast interview. And now, Senamile, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you actually got into the digital marketing space and why you love working with data?
Of course, Simanya. Thank you for having me, by the way. And thank you. I like that you enjoyed the little intro I did there. It was
I
very
love it.
impromptu.
I love
Um,
it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, so as you said, my name is Senamile Zungu. I currently am a commercial process lead at the largest market insight and research data analytics company called Kantar.
Okay.
And this is a role that I've been in for just about a year now, and it's actually precipitated by a career pivot. Before, if you can believe it, I was in the legal profession.
Oh, is it?
And yes, so I have quite a very interesting story. And after I kind of decided that's not the path I wanted to take with my life, I joined a startup company and I was a researcher and writer there. And I quite enjoyed the idea of research and, trying to understand your target market and trying to understand your consumer, trying to understand the landscape in which your business operates in. So I started gravitating a lot towards, research, even though it was more on the qual side.
Okay.
I saw this a role at Kantar and I applied and I got in and it's amazing. And now I'm part of the commercial team. What we do is basically business development. We try to link our clients to the various solutions that we have. And so my love for data is now even tenfold. And I think now being having, seeing the power of data, it makes me very optimistic about what it can do to improve not only brands, not only businesses, but even how we relate to it as ordinary citizens. I
Sure.
think there's immense power in it, but I also think with that power, there comes a big responsibility to use it ethically. So that's just me and my brief experience with data thus far.
And honestly, it's impressive. And you mentioned that you were in the legal space, which I
Yeah.
wouldn't have guessed, you know. I really, really wouldn't have guessed it, you know.
Yeah.
And
I've
and
had quite a few comments like that. People will say to me, it doesn't suit your personality. And I'm like, well, that's why I pivoted.
true, true. It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
But did you actually just to did you actually get to do the whole profession or
No, I never actually even practiced. I think I was about, I worked at the largest law firm in Africa for about a year into my articles. And I just survived 15 months and I was done.
you're one of the
Um,
luckiest people?
so I really didn't enjoy it. But I'm really grateful that I have the exposure and I think that with skills, and this might be something that your listeners are interested in, with any sort of skills, I believe that we live in a type of world where if you can get skills, that is transferable into every single industry you can think of. So even if I look at my background in law and how it aids me at a market research company, I think that there's so many transferable skills that I got there, the ability to research, the ability to communicate a message. So I think that there's we just need to keep our minds open about where we can contribute those skills in a way that fuels our passions.
Interesting. Interesting. And thank you actually for sharing that, because it is honestly one of the most important things that a person actually would need in terms of the skills, because you know you can learn um, the you can learn the best skills that you can, and now one thing about that is that you if you can implement them in different industries, that makes you what that could actually make you one of the most paid people, And now with the economy that we have, it truly makes sense to make sure that the skills that you learn are skills that you can implement everywhere, right?
I
Like date,
completely agree.
like digital marketing, like you learning data, it's one of the most important things that you can do.
I completely agree. And I think in keeping in line with kind of like our listeners who are marketers in the space, I think that there's nothing or no sort of way that you upskill or you get knowledge. In that way, you're looking to connect with human beings, right? And
Okay.
we spoke a little bit off camera about AI and all of those things. And I
Yeah.
think that there's not a single thing that you can learn or in any single type of industry, doesn't have to specifically be all market related things that helps you in your campaigns, getting a better understanding of human beings, society,
True.
engineering, anything. It
Mm.
actually just it just aids and it aids you in being able to communicate a message and ultimately, connecting with your consumers and your target base. So
True. True. Which is why most people actually say that um, emotion can sometimes fail you, right? But data can't fail you, right? And, and that is actually true.
I
You know,
I I agree with that to some extent.
you know, and it's something that I've seen myself. Um, Sometimes the moment you actually said you agree with it. Most of the time you find yourself at that point where you could say that you want to, let's say you want to start your business, right? And let's say a digital marketing agency,
Mhm.
you do it right, and then you start targeting the wrong people when your data is showing that these people are the people that that are these are the people that want what you are trying to sell to them, right?
100%. And I think that since we're, like just getting into it exactly, it's
Yeah.
it's data, what you need to understand is with the data, is it helping you understand your consumer? If you can't understand what drives them, the problems that they have, the places where they go, their aspirations, their visions, if you can't understand that as a marketer, even targeting them, even within the digital realm, you're not going to be able to do a good job of creating that affinity from your brand to them. So the key and then obviously you're not going to be able to drive sales. So the
Yeah.
key the key is to be able to understand your consumer. And I think that, data can help us do that. You need to get insights about like what it is, and also so you can develop your strategy for them. So it's I like to think of data as having the ability to look forward and also look at where you are and has what you've been doing working. So that's
Okay.
more forward looking, but also where you're going. It's a great tool to be able to craft where you're going and to craft strategies. So yeah, I think it's immensely important for digital marketers, no matter your budget. Like it's good to start looking at your data sources and look how that actually helps you carry out your vision.
True. True. And in terms of actually gathering your data, it really also at the very same time doesn't need you to start spending thousands and thousands. You could start with using tools like Google Sheets, right? Or Excel, you know?
Exactly. Everything you just said there. I think that perhaps if you're starting out, it can seem as though, being able to get data, or I can completely understand it may seem a little bit overwhelming, but as you said, there are simple tools to be able to start, you know, collecting that and to be able to start seeing and distilling that. Like you have Excel, you have Google Sheets. There's a number of social media analytics that are available. Even though
True.
I'm not always a fan of strictly looking at that, but it's just another data source. Um, it's so there's a number of ways in which you can do it in a cost-effective manner. Also time effective. There's a system that you can work out. But at the end of the day, you can either use it to craft your goals or see if you're meeting your goals. So it's always a good
Okay.
blueprint to know, is it working? Okay, is it's not working, then maybe craft a new set a new rule standard of goals and then see, and then consistently go back and see and measure your performance and measure all those goals that you want to keep yourself accountable, keep your whole strategy accountable, measure your campaign. So it's there's a lot it can do, even for a beginner or, someone very new in the digital marketing space.
True, true. And also now you're gonna have to forgive me for this. I have to ask you. You mentioned, right, that in terms of the social media analytics side, right, you tend to not listen to it a lot.
In context, I think, I often work with big brands
Okay,
and, some of the uh big brands, well, an issue with everyone within marketing space is obviously budget. You want to be able
true,
to know that you're optimizing your budget, right? And
true.
I will see sometimes the measure of looking at a performance of a campaign. Um, I find digital marketers will focus so much on how many people saw this ad, how many
No,
people did
okay.
it reach, on where were the timelines, how many people saw it, how many people flicked through it. And I think that in context, this is very important. You need to look at data in context. So the reason I'm not necessarily a fan of the social media analytics tools is because sometimes, I mean, depending, did you boost your post? Is it paid for? Is it whatever? You may be spamming the hell out of your consumers. So they have no choice but to see your ad, but is it doing really anything to aid your brand? Is it do anything to grow your equity? Is it doing anything to grow affinity or for people to remember your brand? Is it impactful? Is your brand at the center of that? So there's these whole other set of metrics. And I disagree with just looking at it in the sense of how many people saw this, which is the only
True.
kind of insights that you can distill from social media analytics tools. And of course, now I'm speaking from the context of big brands.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not useful, um, particularly if you're starting out with a little bit of a smaller audience. And of course, you'd want to know that people see it. But this is why I'm
yeah,
saying in context, we must always look at the data in context.
true. That's actually very true, Just to get into that a bit, um, you know, um, in terms of that, as you mentioned, it's important for people that are still starting out to to at least try to look at it just to see if there are people that there are people that are watching it, right? But it gets to a point where you need to start using other sources to actually be able to look at your data, right? Because as you've mentioned, sometimes you may look at it in terms of how many people did see this, and of which um the main reason of that, right? Um, or the main reason of you doing the campaign or anything like that, it is to it is to convert, right? And now the moment you aren't exactly converting but getting a lot of people into it, um, it does it tends to not make sense, right?
Yeah.
It, and which is something that I also say to my clients a lot, which is do not look at how many people saw it, right? Because it doesn't really matter. That's as much as people see it, but it doesn't really matter because you are not getting any return on investment on that specific part, you know. So
Yeah.
it's actually true what you actually mentioned there, And now here's a question, right? Why do people actually often get wrong by using data in marketing?
Well, I'd say again, it's exactly what I said. I'll go back to that answer is that looking at it out of context, I'd see is the biggest mistake that people make with data. Because think of it this way, Simanye, you can out of context, you can make data sound amazing. It can sound like if I think of it, it's like you can say uh 2% of the population said yes to this or whatever, like or they, like, you can be like our ad engagement shot up by like 50%, but like without context, what was it like? Is it just appearing more? Did you pay for it more? So you can make something look bigger than it actually is.
Mm,
And this is why I said we also need to be responsible with data, because it's such a we position it as the ultimate thing of legitimacy. And when you started off this podcast, you said, data will never fail you. But, depending on how you position that data,
Okay.
it can often be misleading. So I'd always say, look at your data in context. Um,
Okay.
um, uh, you know, let it tell, like, put it in context and also in the context of what are you aiming for? And going
Okay.
back to that example, you can just be so excited that your ad is across all these different platforms, and and then meanwhile, what is it doing? What is it doing for your ROI? Are you converting? So then look at it in the context of conversion. Look at it then. Like, did that necessarily translate to that? Is there a link? And if there's anomalies, look at that. Why did it happen in that way? So looking at it in the face of it, can be misleading, I'd always say. So that's the biggest thing I'd say that digital marketers need to look out for. Look at your data in context. Let it guide you, but also be 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 very aware of the context in which you're operating in.
Okay. And I have to say this. Uh, for a person that is saying that she's been in the space for over a year, it's quite amazing. It's really quite amazing to actually listen to you. It's quite amazing, and definitely I'm seeing here that the the audience and even myself, there's a lot of value that is here, and yeah,
I
it's
hope
really
so.
amazing. It's really really amazing, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. I'm happy you find it helpful, but it's also such an important conversation that you're doing, and I love this platform. Being able to equip, marketers and anybody kind of in starting up and starting out and trying to upskill themselves with
Yeah.
the, just accessible tools and info sharing is what we're doing. And I really appreciate that in the sense of like I love the idea of building community and sharing knowledge. And I think if I can also just now bring it back into the context of marketers and in looking to target your audience, try and think about it like that. Think of how can you help them. Every, South Africans are I like to call them hustlers, um,
Okay.
and extremely savvy and amazing, and always looking to upskill. So is there a gap there as a digital marketer? Is there a how-to things like there's an increase in how to search content? How can you actually help your audience? And grow with them. So just think of building community and personalization. So
Okay. Which is actually really interesting. And as I did mention, listening to you tells me that there's a lot of value that is here, you know, for real. Uh, and I think I will be saying that a lot. And in terms of that, I think having a community of like-minded people, it's actually one of the most important things that can be done by someone, right? Because not a lot of people are getting that specific support or are not getting that information, Now, giving them a platform where they can be able to learn and where they can also share their own ideas to it's really something that is amazing. So, I'm glad that I could actually be able to do that,
yeah.
and so if someone is actually new to using data in marketing, what should they do first?
Ooh, I'd I'd always say you need to define your goals. So that's the first thing. What do you want the data to tell you? Because you data is supposed to provide you insight. Your ultimate goal is to know your target and know your audience, know the context in which you operate in. And
Okay.
I keep on going back to context, but if you are a rookie in the space, or you're using data for the first time, you're a digital marketer, you want to know how can you measure certain, metrics and like all those goals that you have is you start by defining them. What are the things that are important to you? And this is different for everyone. It's very subjective depending on what it is, the product that you're offering, what space are you disrupting? So this will be very, very specific to your industry, your business, and what you're hoping to achieve. Um, if you don't have a sort of clear goals. I mean, you could be in a service industry where you rely a lot on customer experience. So customer
Okay.
engagement and their experience of your brand is the number one thing. And so you need to define that, because if yours is customer experience, or measuring that, then something in the digital space, won't necessarily have that much bearing. There's so much. So define your goals. Where are you looking to, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do for your brand? Is it sales? Is it everything? So define that first, and then you'll be able to use the data to either support you in achieving those goals, or to see if the stuff that you've been doing has been working. Goal oriented is what I say, because data is it's overwhelming when you're starting out. And so this is why I'm
True.
saying having actionable little goals, and with the mind of getting to know your consumer, or either like being closer to them or solving their problems. So start off with just goals, simple actionable goals, see what you want the data to do for you.
Okay. And when you do that, that will actually assist you in making sure that you get to where you need to get to, right?
I mean, yes, hopefully. Again, it's only another part of it. There's so much. You can have the data, and you can know what's working, what's not working, and
Not
that's
working.
the insight. But there's always the now what, which is more of the strat piece. So, the data is going to be very important in developing a strategy, either forward looking or measuring if the stuff that you've been doing is working. So that is subjective across so many industries and whatever it is that you're selling or trying to connect with your consumer for.
Okay. And so basically now, what types of data should marketers look at when they are improving their work?
There's so many data points, exactly. Like, it's again, this is a very broad question.
Mm.
But I suppose, if we're looking at in the digital marketing space, if I'm just thinking of in a little bit more of starting out type of thing. You obviously, that's what you want to look. You want to look at engagement. Is your messaging doing a good job? And engagement is everything right now in the digital space. I think in the digital landscape, we're seeing trends like consumers want they don't want to be like spoken to or like sold at. So any type of content that feels too salesy, they're
Mm.
very averse to it. So I'd say that I actually Kantar released their media reactions report, which is a study that we do annually, of
Okay.
where are consumers watching, or which different media touch points are they consuming their ads? Where are they most receptive to consuming their ads? And it's
Okay.
not a surprise that obviously in the digital space, social media, they really hated seeing ads there. I think it
Okay.
is one of the places where they really because they view the lack of data protection as a little bit like, and it's too spammy and it's too in your face. And what are consumers looking for when they are on those spaces? They're looking actually for a break. They want to laugh, they want to engage with friends. They looking at, they want to unwind. They don't want to know that they're being stalked all the way to like their TikTok or their Instagram. So the key is, where we find works well in the digital space, is actually curating your content to actually almost cosplay as entertainment a little bit. So
Okay.
so the most successful sort of creatives or ads, or on digital, are ones that actually genuinely are entertaining. So think of it that way, like, as well. So there's massive opportunity there.
Yeah.
Um yeah, going back, I completely now, yeah. So that's the question, but yeah, that's what
Okay. And now just to add to that, it's really interesting what you actually said there, right? And just to add to that, I think another thing I've also noticed it. Um, I think I was on YouTube. It was a week ago actually, and so I went to YouTube and I was listening to music, because one thing about me is that um there's YouTube Premium, right? And
yes.
of which I don't use it. Because at the very same time, I think on my side, it's a matter of knowing that when you watch a specific ad, right, that tends to help someone on the other side, right? So on my side, I just let it play then, you know. So now one thing that I started to actually notice was that um now they are the ads, they are starting to annoy me, and now the more they were annoying me, I was like, could it be that this is the same thing that is happening on my side? You know, because that is what I work with, every day actually. Now
Yeah.
on my side, I was like, I really need to go now and look at everything that I've been doing for my clients, because this is starting to annoy me.
Yeah.
Um, when I look this side, they are selling to me. When I look at this side, they're selling to
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
And now one thing that I started to then notice, right, was that what if, right? Because what I've been doing is that as much as we have been selling, but we have been giving out value, right? And then when we give out that value, at the end of it, that's when we just, a bit, we just, so
Yeah.
and now one thing that as I mentioned, I had to go and look back to the data, to the data, right, and look at everything that we have been doing. And just to add to what you were saying, and confirm it basically, right? When I went to look at it, I started noticing that the content that we have been selling on, right, which is ads, it hasn't it has been performing good, right, but not as good as it should be performing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the moment we started looking at the ads which were giving out value to home owners, right? Now that's where the gold mine was
Great.
basically, and still is, because we are giving out value, right? And the
Mm.
moment you give out value to people, you build some sort of a trust, right? Actually, you don't. It's not some sort, but you build trust, right? And that I noticed, right? So what you are saying there, it is something that is true, and it's something that is really, really important. So um, I just had to add to that, because
Yeah.
it's
And
something that
what you
is
just described there is such a perfect example of the trap that marketers may fall into in the digital marketing space is thinking, just the views or buying the ad space or just pushing, pushing, pushing is actually like the more consumers see you, the more they're going to have an affinity towards your brand. And that could actually sometimes be the opposite. Once you start to move across the line of starting to annoy them, so going back to what you said, Simanya, the best way, and this is what I want marketers to think about, is how do you create value? Exactly as you said, like as evidenced by your kind
yeah,
of like anecdotal view of it, is how do you create value? There's so much opportunity to create value and build actually, like exactly as you said, that trust with your consumer. Actually help them, give them value,
true,
whether that be in the form of they think the ad is entertaining. There's so many different ways to improve engagement, using humor, emotion. Are you maybe, referencing like a skill, or are you talking to something that they didn't know? Create value rather than just making it so salesy and in their face. It could actually be harming your brand equity.
true, true. And the moment it starts, um, or let me just say, the moment you start creating or running ads or anything like that, that is too salesy. You mentioned that it might hurt your brand equity, and to be honest, that is true, right? Because the moment you actually start selling more than giving out value, that's when there's going to be a huge problem,
Yeah.
right? Because you won't be making people trust you. And actually, I have to say this. One thing about selling to people, right, is that um, when you try to sell to people, they start locking in, they start, being on defense.
Yeah.
Now, when you are doing that, um, even if it's in an ad, but you need to understand that it will hurt you, right? Because when you do that, people are gonna start being on defense, right? So it's not exactly helping you in any way doing that, So I actually had to share that,
That's
and
amazing.
you know, and so basically, what are the most important numbers or metrics that marketers should watch?
Oh, for digital marketing. Again, would like I this is completely subjective because again, in context, it depends on what you're looking for your ad or your creative to achieve. But I think that this is my take based on I think
Okay,
that the most important metric would be look at more look at more of the engagement with your brand. Like so I know I said like don't focus so much on like whatever, but I think in the context of if you were to do an ad on TikTok,
okay,
it's always validating to see the shares, the comments, what conversation are you starting, but also the engagement is a really important way to I find to learn more about your consumer. And so even that is a way to distill further insights.
okay,
Look at like the way that they're engaged. Are they sharing with friends? Are you seeing your I think if your creative or your digital or your ad has the effect as a digital marketer of us actually taking it off the platform and starting to share and it generating a bigger conversation, you have won like the marketing Olympics. Like it's amazing. Like once consumers start sharing and speaking about your brand, um, independent of you having to push that. That's exactly what
okay,
every digital marketer wants. So, again, as I was thinking about, like, there's so much room, and as you said, in creating that value. So, if you created if you set a post or whatever, and it had your brand still central to it, but was adding value, or somebody could distill something from it, and then took it and like shared it with a friend or shared it on a WhatsApp group, that is impressive brand equity. So I think it does a more of a long-term way of growing your brand. So always look at kind of like the engagement. There's so many different like methods you can use, like you awareness and all of those things. Again, I'm not a fan. Like I'm just like awareness is not everything. I'd like to say like in the digital marketing space, probably just like engagement. Look at engagement. And I think look at what, okay, if I posted this or this type of creative didn't generate as much, what was the conversation? What was the buzz? I think that's incredibly useful.
so basically now, Senamile, how can marketers tell which data is helpful and which is not, right? I know you did mention that um, it's important to look at sometimes it's not important to look at the engagement, and sometimes engagement is what works. It just depends on your goal, right?
Mm.
Um, Maybe I'm paraphrasing it a bit, but
Mhm.
yeah. So could you please tell us more a bit about that? Um,
I mean, yeah, again, it's we spoke about it like it's what I'd say the biggest thing is it relevant or is it not for your campaign? Is the data relevant? So there's certain things that are going to be relevant depending on on your target, right? So even information like demographics in the data, if that matters to you, then like, obviously you're going to so it's again going back to the thing of try and assess your goals and who you're targeting. Have a clear more understanding of what you're looking to do. Because if it's, for example, a different demographic like Gen Z, and your
okay.
digital is targeted towards the very, everybody's scared and everybody wants to know more about the Gen Z, then is the data on like how many people scroll through it, like just if you're targeting Gen Z, then what other things are relevant in that. So if you this is about now distilling your data, looking at it and looking a little bit more into it. So what's helpful and what's not is so subjective. So just if you don't probably have clear objective of what you're using it for, or what your objectives are, like then it runs a risk of you run the risk of focusing on data that is completely irrelevant to your cause or your purpose. And the way you eliminate that risk is by what do you want your ad to do?
Okay.
Is it about conversion? Is it about aiding your brand equity? Are you looking at future growth? Are you looking at maybe targeting do you want to get into a new segment? Is there opportunity somewhere else? Are you working on a new product offering? What do you want? Like, what is your goal? So there's a whole bunch of things that will not be like relevant if you don't distill that, because there's a lot, as we spoke about data. It's almost like overwhelming and all encompassing. So go back to
True.
basics. Go back to basics of what you wanted to do for you, and don't fall into the trap as well of it can be so easy to start comparing. um Sometimes as well, you as a smaller brand or as a smaller kind of marketer or working on getting out a smaller business, it can be so tempting to look at other people and their level of what they're doing, but
Okay.
sometimes zooming in on the things that work for you and what makes you what is the connection between you and your customers, because um offering at what value do you give them, that can be so misleading. That's more important to me than the likes, which are not sustainable in growing your brand. Like, now we're looking at using data and marketing for business longevity,
Okay.
um and you can only like know that if you have clearly defined goals, and then using your data to measure whether or not you're meeting those targets and those goals.
Okay. And that is a very interesting of a way of looking at it. And you have been actually mentioning this, which is why I actually wanted you to mention it again, because sometimes um for information to be um for people to implement the information, sometimes it needs to keep on repeating so that it can stay in their minds, right? So
Yeah.
um
Yeah, we'll drive it home today. We're like, guys, what is your goal? It's not just for the likes, it's not for the retweet. Like, just, is it actually building your equity? You won't know that if you haven't measured like what is the most important things for you to build that equity. Sustainability, like you want sustainable growth as well, right? Anybody
yeah.
wants that.
Yeah, that's true. And also there's this part that you have been trying to make sure that people don't forget about, which is you've been mentioning that. So guys, just for context, which I think it's actually one of the most important things that you can do in this era of content, right? Or, um the part where you're actually mentioning that this is just for context, guys, and then you get into it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and as you're on your side, maybe, but according to my side, I think it's one of the most important things that you can actually say before you actually say something. That is something that we've learned in this space, basically, of content creation, right? So yeah, I wanted to actually mention that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and now, um, how does data help marketers make better choices for their campaigns?
Mm.
Yeah, and
I'd say, you know, one of the making better choices for the campaigns is the personalization, right? I think that you want to be able to connect with your audience. And if you use those kind of insights from the data again to see what is motivating your audience, like what are their likes, what are their dislikes? Like, where are they watching stuff? What drives them? Like, what trends are they on? What is everybody talking about right now? Like, and I think that this is where I love marketers and being in the marketing space is I literally I think I see their role as not just how we just the trendy on brand everything is that they actually serve such an important function in linking like businesses with consumers, right? And businesses solve issues and they solve problems,
yeah,
and they offer like solutions, and they actually brands and businesses mean a great deal to our everyday life. I mean, think of it that way. Like, it's the backbone of our economy. That kind of symbiotic relationship of consumer and business is so
yeah.
important. So, yeah, it's like look at it that way. Like, use that and use those insights from the data. Use it to craft a story to try to understand your consumer better. And then if you can do that, you can be able to personalize so many things, like where you target them, where are they watching? What are their immediate problems? Like for example, this is a really good example because I'm just gonna it's I find it fascinating. Kantar runs an annual study called the Mzansi Barometer, and that is
Okay.
a study of the average South African consumer. And it looks at a wide range of kind of socioeconomic the questionnaire just basically just ask South Africans things like what are they worried about? What are their future projections? Are they optimistic about the country? What do they do? Like, where are they allocating finances? What are they doing? And one of the most important things that came out of the 2022 study is what do South Africans do during load shedding? Um, and yeah, and one of the most fascinating things that we found in the answers of what South Africans are doing during load shedding, well, a lot of them are napping. So that was just funny. Like the country was taking more naps. I mean, it's still load shedding is still a reality. But
Yeah.
another very interesting part for me, and this is what really blew my mind, and I think this is what is going to it is very important for digital marketers. This kind of is that another thing that we found is that when there was load shedding, there was actually an increase in South Africans being online. So
Okay.
it that means that despite load shedding, people was using more data. And despite having less money in their pockets, less disposable income, um, people were still prioritizing data. And we know that in this current economy, South Africans are feeling the crunch. The cost of living internationally, but also more locally, has risen, right?
Yeah.
And what we are seeing from that data is that people are seriously, now think of it this way. People are looking at a 10 Rand and they are thinking, am I going to buy bread or am I going to buy data?
True.
That is how important being connected in this country is. And you can like make that what you will. But what I'm trying to say is that being connected and being able to data is just is as important as a food basket now. And you can look at it in many ways, and that
Mm.
how else can South Africans participate in the economy? As I said, they're hustlers. So there's even data to show that most people have a side hustle or are actively thinking about getting how to get secondary ways of income. And to do that, they need to be in a connected world. So now going back to my thing about where digital marketers can play in this space, more people are relying on being connected and being online. What opportunity does that present to you as a marketer? That for me is huge potential. And again, going back to that thing we discussed of adding value in the context where South Africans are feeling the crunch of the pressing socioeconomic issues and they are prioritizing staying online, what value can you offer them? And I think that if you can think about creative ways to do that as a marketer, um, you would have a successful campaign.
True. And that was a lot of information that was actually valuable, you know. And 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 I just hope um anyone that is listening, they're taking notes, right? And not only taking notes, but you will implement everything that you are listening to right now, right? Because it's useless to listen to it if you're not going to implement it, right? So and you know, you mentioned something, which was that um now it just gets to a point where um people before they if they have a 10 rand, before they can start using it, they start asking themselves question, which is, should I buy data or should I buy bread, right? And and that is something that you would notice a lot, right? Because it really happens, you know, which simply means that the data was correct, right? You would see a person, even if that person is thinking, let's say, of heading somewhere, right? You know, they get to a point where even if they have to have fun, right? And go out, it gets to a point where they have to actually calculate, um, you know, which
Hmm.
simply means that um, people are leaving. The way people now are leaving, they 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 try to accommodate social media or the online world, in whatever that they do.
Mm.
And you also asked the question, which was, if we know that this is happening, then um, we can then be able to then being um, start creating campaigns that are effective, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure I'm not saying it how you said it, but I'm just paraphrasing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that is something that was a very important statement and question at the very same time, right? Which I'm hoping that a lot of people are listening to, right? Because that is really, really important. Um, because the more people are online, the more there's money to be made. And I'm sorry to say that, you know.
No, it's completely it's true. And I think Simon, I also want to I think in historically, we may look at, the online space as a certain kind of market segment. Or we there's this narrative that okay, only those that are in a certain socioeconomic bracket are the ones who are online. So therefore if our maybe product or our business is targeting a certain other segment, then this is where we won't find them. And I think that what that data from the barometer did is debunk that. We like being online is critical for the average South African. And remember, like the average South African across township, across, it being data in and of itself is a currency. Where, as digital marketers, can you find a gap? And how can you exactly as you said, there's money to be made there.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's an awful thing to say. It's something scandalous. It's true. At the end of the
yeah,
day, depending on what your campaign you wanted to drive engagement, you wanted to drive sales, and you wanted to drive brand equity. So yeah, I don't think it's a scandalous thing to say. So yeah.
yeah. And that to me, and even when I get to explain it, how can I put it? It has that thing to it, right? Um, because to be honest, a lot of money is being made online, right? And now one thing that is important nowadays, it is the attention of the consumers, right?
Mm,
That is the most important thing, right? Every person nowadays is vying for that attention, right? Trying to find ways
yeah.
to get that attention, right? And now on my side, the reason why I was saying I'm sorry to be saying this, it's because it's quite sad to see how it's all being made, right? Especially when you are part of doing that, and as much as it is a good thing, right? Because at the end of the day, you are solving, right, problems. You are solving their problems, right?
Mm,
Which is a good thing, which is a good thing. On my side, I just have that thing in me that what if this didn't happen, then that so I kind of have those questions, but yeah, I kind of have those questions. And so just to now head on straight to the tips, right? Could you share some tips, as much as you've shared some of them, but I want
mm.
you, yeah, if it's possible, could you please, okay, let me just first of all, give you this question, right? So, can you share some tips, using data to make marketing better, right?
I think
And
yeah,
uh,
I can. You know
okay,
what you know how I think I'll answer that question is I
okay,
can tell you what data that we've seen that
okay,
that is creates successful marketing. Maybe I can a successful digital creative. Maybe I can share some
yeah,
learnings on that.
yeah,
Well, we saw, I think I touched on it already, so I'm not gonna go too much into this detail, but
yeah,
consumers are extremely receptive to ads that are sort of blur the lines between being an ad and being entertainment. So think about that carefully and think about how, as a digital marketer, you can play in that space. We're seeing so many creative things right now happening on TikTok. And I think I said that if you can get your brand to communicate your brand message without sounding salesy, but where people can take a genuine interest in what you have to say, that's amazing. You have there's a, data shows us, Kantar has a base, a link database, which is basically, I'm not going to explain what it is, but we also
Yeah.
ran a study and a database of kind of testing creative ads and what makes them work and what doesn't. And one thing that we found in running that data or seeing that data is that typically the consumer, you'll have their attention on the digital space for 5 seconds. 5 seconds, it's called like the 5 second rules within the digital marketing space. And then they either click or you've lost them. So what you
Okay.
do in those 5 seconds is critical. So if you can, as a digital marketer, think of ways in which you can communicate, first of all, your brand. So grabbing that attention. There's various ways to do that. Now we've seen people have success with using humor. Humor in your digital ads is a big one. So evoking mostly emotion, but humor is number one. We know South Africans, we like to joke. So anything that we can turn into a meme, anything that we can laugh over, we find that successful ads, our data shows that if an ad is really good at creating kind of like that emotional or evoking that humor thing, it performs really well.
Mm.
Having your brand at the center stage is very important because it's not just about grabbing the attention, right? With something scandalous or something funny. People need to remember if they can think of a funny thing but can't remember what it was, then you've just wasted the entire creative. Because at the end of the day, they need to know that, oh, this was a product like this is Simanye's thing. Not that, oh, we just saw this funny thing. I can't remember what it was advertising or what the brand is. So
Mm.
find a way to communicate your brand even within that 5 seconds while you're grabbing the attention of the consumer. So just doing something scandalous or audacious is not going to cut it. And yeah, like that's what we've seen. We've seen success as well. If it's uh kind of targeted across maybe a more cohesive campaign. So target for the platform.
Okay.
Um, that is a very important one. I find that ads that we've seen are like very successful. It's not just going to be something, an ad done for TikTok, then repurposed and put onto YouTube and then put onto Instagram. So if you
Mm.
can, um, you know, create, kind of like cultivate a very coordinated and cohesive campaign across all these different platforms, but also make sure that they're platform specific. Because
Okay.
what we know from the data is that what works on TikTok doesn't work on YouTube. YouTube's
Mm.
a different animal. What works on Instagram Reels maybe won't work on Facebook Watch or whatever. And so those are just some of my top line in terms of thinking of digital creatives and or digital ads.
Yeah.
What are the most successful things I can say? Just maybe focus on again that branded engagement, grabbing their attention in the first 5 seconds, and making content that isn't too salesy and actually feels like it adds value or is blurs the line with that or entertainment,
Okay.
and get that emotion. Hello,
I think,
Simanya.
yeah, now I can hear you. You were
Oh, I'm
cutting there.
back. Oh, apologies. Am I back?
Yeah, now you're back. But
Okay.
I can't see you. I think you
Hold
switched
on.
off
I'll
your
be
video.
right back. I did. I tried to get the bandwidth back. Apologies.
No, okay. No, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, okay, we can continue. The thing is that you kept on cutting the what you were trying to explain. So
Apologies. Do you want me to do that thing again? Or
yeah, if you remember it, then please.
okay. So again, I'll say I can't give you like I can give you tips of what we've seen from the data that actually is an effective creative or an effective ad on digital. Um that one, the first is that the data shows us that you have typically 5 seconds to grab the attention of your consumer. 5 seconds before they either skip or do something else. So in that 5 seconds, it's critical. What you want to do is grab their attention, and there's various ways in which you can do that. Emotion as a very powerful engagement tool. So either through humor, we know that the number one thing with South Africans is they resonate with ads that are humorous. We love to laugh, we love a meme. So if you can do that as in your ad, you would have, it's that's the number one thing. Like it's amazing how South Africans have such an affinity towards laughing and humor. And if your ad
Yeah.
can grab that attention in the 5 seconds, it's amazing. And in that, you want to, as I said before, you want to create content. We see that what works is ads that blur the line between being an ad and being like entertainment or adding value. So going back to that thing, we want to see that it adds value, make sure that, just be creative about how you do it. You want to be able to create branded engagement. So I spoke about grabbing the attention in 5 seconds. Your ad can be excellent and be amazing, but if people can't remember your brand or what it is that was selling, then it would have completely lost the point. You
Yeah.
want to make sure that you have done all those things, you've created a successful, amazing advert, but if no one can remember what it was that you were selling, then it's just a lost thing. So put the brand at the center. Again, with balancing out with not being salesy, but it's important that people remember what it is that they saw and associate that with you. And yeah, I'd say customize for the different platforms if you can, because what works on, for example, a TikTok ad is not going to work on YouTube. It's a very different
Yeah.
beast. What works on a real Instagram reel is not going to necessarily work on like a Facebook watch or something like that. So I think that's a big that's a trap that digital marketers fall into, is repurposing an ad across the different platforms. So you need to understand the different platforms, what drives engagements across the different platforms, and then tailor your ad towards the specific platform. And we see that people that do, or brands that do that, marketers that do that, typically, get very, very, very good like ads. So those are just like my type. If I look at what the data says of tips and trends that are happening right now that digital marketers can leverage off, all those that I just named right there. Branded
Yeah.
engagement, you have 5 seconds, grab the attention, create humor, create value, and customize for platform.
And to be honest, I have to say that I agree with you on that, because there's one thing that I've also started to notice, which is why I'm sure quite a few people were asking probably why um are you, Senamile, actually, why did you do the intro? Some
Mm,
people may be asking that. And the reason behind that, it's because I started to actually understand that um there's that 5 seconds, 30 seconds gap, right? And of which, if you do not make sure that you 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 give out what this is all about, then people will start going away from it, right?
mm,
It's like that even with organic. If you are to go to YouTube, right? On YouTube, you'll find that with organic YouTube videos, right? You'll find that there's a video there. Let's say Mr. Beast, for instance, right? If you can look at Mr. Beast video, the moment you click on it, right? Throughout, let's say 30 seconds, it tells you everything that you need to know about that video, right?
mm,
It gives you all of the information, which starts then to tell you that, as I mentioned, having attaining the attention of the consumers is one thing that everyone is vying for, right?
mm,
And that 5 to 30 seconds, it is part of how you actually get the attention, right?
mm,
And also at the very same time, it's also not about actually getting them for that 5 to 30 seconds, but it's also about what will you be doing going forward, right? Because the moment you get them on let's say on that ad campaign or on that specific video, let's say for that 30 seconds, then they start to watch it, but
Mm.
you are not exactly grabbing their attention. They're gonna leave the platform,
Yeah.
right? They're gonna leave the platform. They are gonna stop watching that ad, right? So as much as that specific part, it's important, but you shouldn't forget it that
Mm.
you need to keep you need to keep to always be trying to get their attention throughout that um campaign, right?
Yeah.
And which is the most important thing, because I also I had actually tried something out, right? So there was this one thing that I kept on saying to my clients they shouldn't do, right? Which was boosting, right?
Mm.
I told them, guys, don't boost, right? Don't boost. And which so sometimes it works for some people, right? That specific part, I won't lie about it. Sometimes it works for other people, right? So what I then did was that I decided that let me just run an ad, right? Um, on my side, let me just run an ad. I created a actually I don't let me just check. I think I still have it, but I created a video, right? Um, no, but no, I don't have it. I must. Oh, actually, here is it. Let me just quickly check it. So I don't know if you.
Hmm. Okay.
You know, so
Yeah, that's spot on. I need to
so,
follow you on TikTok.
yeah, I'm actually almost on every platform, but
Mm.
um, yeah, the only platform that I utilize a lot it's it's LinkedIn now, right? Because
Yeah.
I've started to notice that um every business business deal that I've gotten thus far, it's from LinkedIn, right? So I'm starting to put my attention that side, right? So yeah, just to get back to what I was actually trying to show you here. I did this, right? And then I did it on Instagram, right? I did it on TikTok. I also did it on YouTube, also on LinkedIn. I did,
Mm.
right? And now one thing that I wanted to check here was how is it actually going to the response, right? And I also wanted to see what's going to happen with it. And so on 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 Instagram, right? I tried it in the Southern Africa market, right? And it didn't actually perform that good. And then I decided that let me just try this, right? And for boosting that was something that I shouldn't have done. So I decided let me just take it worldwide, right? And when I did that, I then started to notice something, which there was a difference in it, right? And with that being said, one thing that I know, I didn't get any followers from it, right?
Mm.
But I got a lot of views from it, you know,
Mm.
which at the end of the day, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish.
Mm. Mm.
Now, with this being said, I want to actually attest to something that you were saying that um, what you do on one platform won't necessarily work on the other platform,
Yeah.
right? And then second of all, um, what's this? The first 5 seconds to 30 seconds are the most important, um,
Mm.
you know, because it's where you actually get them to watch it even more, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, now with that being said, I actually wanted to attest to what you were saying, which is that is really, really important. And also I'm actually looking at the time right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
I
at the
think we've
time,
had so much to chat about.
you know. Uh, but I think let's just try and um at least a few minutes
Not a
and
problem. Yeah, then
at
we
least a few
can.
minutes. So can you hear me right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. There was a cut there, but yeah. So basically now we're just gonna get into the into the what's this? We're gonna get into the trends and innovations, and then after that we'll just have to try and
Is this trends with AI?
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
we need to skip. I think we have enough content to skip that because I think
yeah,
we might
that's true.
address digital trends. Yeah.
That's true. So now we're just gonna get into the, let me just say, let's just go to um the the future of data. Uh
AI.
yeah. Now I think, yeah, I think we have enough information. So we're just gonna get to the to your personal insight, and then the company's podcast, personal podcast, and then yeah.
I think
So
we've done a good job though.
yeah, we've done a good job. And also actually wait. Um, there's this part where I actually said my kind of hard but fun question, right?
Okay.
Do Would you be able to take that question?
What does it go again?
It's with more focus on privacy. How can marketers use data to respect people's privacy?
Oh, see, it goes back to that thing. Well, I can try and answer it. You can see if you want to cut it off. But yeah, I'm happy to take it. It may be a little bit repetitive, but it's actually important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so now here's another question, Senamile, right? Which is um with more focus on privacy, as
Mm.
you know, right? How can marketers use data to while actually respecting people's privacy? Because you
Oh,
had because sorry to cut you there, because you also had mentioned that um one thing that we actually, now I think I forgot it, but you did mention something in regards to that. But yeah, so
yeah, Simanya, actually, that's such an important question. And I did allude to it earlier when I said that based on our media reactions reports, which I spoke about earlier, which is an annual study that Kantar does of where are consumers receptive to seeing ads. One of the reasons why they said they're not receptive to seeing ads on social media and like their digital platforms is because the lack of perceived privacy. It seems like it's targeted. People feel like it's eerie how they're being listened to. And I said this before, you may think that, just bombarding everywhere when consumers are just trying to have a break. They're trying to have a laugh, they're trying to be on other things, and then you're
mm,
selling them stuff. It actually could harm your brand equity. But so be careful of that because they don't take lightly to feeling as though their data and their personal information is being exploited. So I
true.
understand that, collecting data, the very nature of it is collecting personal information, but we have to be responsible in the way and how we do it, and more responsible in how that translates to our comms and where we're targeting our consumers. So from a more like marketing lens and what it does for you, I'll leave it there. But there's obviously other considerations in the sense that there's actually strict legislation on right now, with how so this is me putting on my lawyer cap for a little bit. But it is in your best interest to respect personal information. I think that even in the discussions right now in the mainstream and what is popular, there's huge data privacy concerns. And I think that we all ought to be very sensitive. Consumers are becoming more astute about how their personal information is being used. They
Mm,
don't like the idea of being exploited for their personal information. And so there's a whole bunch of ethical considerations with data privacy as well that I think is in your best interest as a consumer, as a marketer, to abide by. I mean, I can think of a big brand recently that had a data breach, and it was all over the news, and it was, I won't reference who they are, but it was very scary to see, or it was unfortunate to see because I actually think they're an amazing brand, to
mm,
see kind of like the public fallout from the data breach. So, as a marketer, you want to respect that. You don't want to, it's a very sensitive thing right now. So, I think the big mistake that marketers can make about privacy, and personal information is thinking it doesn't matter to the consumer. If you carry on with that school of thought, you may be in trouble, my friend, because it is very important to consumers that their privacy and their personal information, you need to use that in a way that is extremely sensitive.
Okay. And thank you for sharing that, because that is um the most important thing that we have to look at as marketers, right? And even as business owners, that is one of the most important things that you need to look at, right? And so basically now, and also I think I know the brand that you're talking about, and it actually has happened a lot of times, right? And of which I won't actually get to that also, you know, whereby the data has there has been a breach, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so basically now, what do you actually enjoy, Senamile, about working with data, right, and digital marketing?
Yeah, I think one it's see now I'm lighting up because I am insatiably curious. I am the type of individual that is so curious about all range different types of topics. So I think for me, and I'm also so interested in human behavior, and I'm also very, very interested in connecting. My superpower is engagement. I love talking to people. I love understanding them. I think in doing that, like you learn so much more about yourself too. So I think the data and seeing even some things that I thought were one way, but then seeing the data, then
Mm,
being able to see the gap between my understanding and what the data says and interrogating that. So it allows me room to just feed into that curiosity, trying to understand the way the world works, trying to understand how this complex country with its amazing, diverse, crazy people. I feel like in South Africa, you feel like you're in like four different time zones in one day. What happened in the morning is not the same as what's going on at lunch, by afternoon, and by at night. And we
true.
live in such a dynamic and complex country. Like it is amazing to me. I can't imagine living anywhere else. So I think, working with data is just another tool for me to explore that curiosity and try to understand consumers better. How they think, how they speak, what are the issues where are they investing their time, and that is incredibly like fulfilling and fueling to me, and also using that to try and solve some pressing issues, trying using that to try and grow brands. I think brands, again, I said, are like the backbone of and so important in shaping our country's collective personality and vision and aspirations. I think that over
True.
the past 30 years in our democracy, they've been pivotal. I mean, you can think of so many iconic campaigns. So I really enjoy looking at that link between brands and nation building and brands and how they show up in our lives. So working with data and in market research allows me to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And thank you actually for sharing that, Um and I think it's actually great to actually hear that um it's actually great to hear that in terms of digital marketing and also AI. You Sorry there. I'll
No, go
cut this.
ahead. It's
No,
okay. No,
I'll
it's
cut
okay.
this
Go
out.
ahead.
I'll cut this out. So basically it's actually good to hear that um you as you were mentioning, Guti, um the you and working in the space, it's actually good to actually start hearing um other, let me just say, digital marketers, and
Mm,
and because at the end of the day you are part of, the digital marketing
mm.
space. So so it's actually good to hear digital marketers speaking pretty much good about the digital marketing space,
Mm,
because among everything else, um, digital marketing, as you mentioned, it is, and marketing, it's one of the most important things in the country and even in the world,
mm,
right?
mm, mm,
Because with through marketers, right, it's basically how most big brands out there that control the how can I put it? I don't want to say that control the country. Um, that control the marketplace, right? Those brands are big brands due to the fact that there were marketers in place that
Yeah.
so marketing is actually one of the most important things in the world, right?
Mm,
And you actually did mention that, which I'm glad that you actually did mention that, because
mm.
um not a lot of people tend to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And it's
I
something
think
that,
we just look at marketers and we just think, oh, amazing, they're funny, they're creative, but they serve a very important function in this whole ecosystem. And I think that it's about time that we start to like give it the weight of the profession, the weight of the gravity of what they do. We start, acknowledging that too, because I think that the work that you do is very, very important in the grand ecosystem of things. Yeah.
that's true. And also, um thank you very much for sharing the information that you've shared with us. And now basically, if you could give one piece of advice to marketers about using data, what would it be?
Use data to connect with your audience and your consumers. It's all about connection, okay? If people ask me, in my very limited knowledge of the latest AI innovations right now, and people are like, oh my goodness, like what is this going to do? How's this going to affect? And it's important to remember that, all throughout history, there's always been innovations that, will threaten the kind of skill set or job security that we think we
Yeah,
have. It's not a new thing. So I'm not coming too much on that, but what I will say is that I think that the superpowers of marketers is their ability to connect. So use that data as a tool to connect. Use that data to distill what resonates with your audience, what drives them. How can your solutions be part and parcel of their daily lives and how they're trying to navigate their life? What solutions, what value do you bring them? And so that is my just connection is something that I see getting more and more because we live in a very numbers world, right? And we live in a
true.
very much, we want solid ROI numbers and we want to see all of that. I feel bad for marketers because they're under pressure to be able to show and show that on spreadsheets and show the big bosses how that's like developing or like, their clients and show them the bottom line of what they're doing. But for me, I look at what they do in so much more of a long-term game it long term and sustainably and how look at how the biggest brands in the world grew. It is because they fundamentally had their pulse on the needs and desires of their consumer. So if you are starting out in marketing or you're just new in the digital marketing space, I can understand how it can feel overwhelming and pressure to deliver on those, very hardline numbers. But I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that building that connection with your audience is a long game, and that connection is your currency.
Okay. And that is actually something that is very interesting. And I'm hoping that, because even myself, I will be taking that into consideration. So I'm hoping that the marketers that are listening to this, they are taking notes, right? And start implementing it. Because as I mentioned, you can take the notes, but if you're not implementing it, then it's pretty much useless, right? And so you did mention to me, when we had our own conversation on the side, right, that you are involved in a podcast at Conta, right? And could you tell us a bit about it?
Yes, so we recently launched a podcast because, like you, when we had our discussion, you wanted to offer, we wanted to offer, there was a demand to kind of build more on the things that we see in our research and in our study. And we wanted to be able to offer our clients that view, of just speaking about, things and that we're seeing in the data, very exciting trends, everything market related about how to build the brand of tomorrow. But we also wanted to give everyday marketers and everyday South Africans, anyone interested in marketing, to be able
Mm,
to like, also get access to that information that we typically, would not be accessible to them. So we have very actionable, very just amazing information, and we addressed amazing topics. The range of the level and the caliber of guests that we've had on the podcast is amazing. So I encourage all the listeners to go
yeah,
look at Future Proof Mzansi, Insights by Kantar. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. We've had some incredible guests, guests from Google, guests who are incredible, leaders in the space of ads and creatives, and it's
yeah,
just amazing. So go ahead and check it out. I'm very excited about it.
yeah. And I actually also did check it out, and I can safely say that they can check it out. Because you did send me the links to the podcast, which the second one we'll talk about, right? But I did actually check them out, and it's definitely something that the listeners have to actually check out. There's a lot of value that is being dropped there. So, guys, as soon as you listen to this, you can head out straight to that side, and I'll be leaving the links actually down below so they can head out straight to listen to the podcast, right? And basically now, since you've mentioned the topics that you guys basically cover, right? Well, actually, yeah, you can get in depth on that specific part, and also please mention who are your main audience on the podcast.
Yeah, so with Future Proof from Zanzi, our main audience is marketers of our client brands. So I did say that we work with probably 85% of the biggest brands in the country and in the continent. So it is we do tailor it for our clients who are like really want to know what's happening in the region and within South Africa and looking for trends like that. But I think we've struck a really good balance of that being our audience, but we also want it to be insightful to the everyday consumer and the everyday marketer and business owner. So anyone who wants to know more about marketing can find massive value in it. So that's like our audience. Um, my favorite topics that we've done so far. Oh, recently actually we released the latest episode that we did is with two amazing guests. And we were looking at the idea or the where the topic of it was what to do with a TV advertising budget in the world of load shedding. So we looked at questions like, are consumers migrating to digital? And if you want to know that, go watch it. And yeah, I think I'd also we had a very interesting interview. This was one of my favorites as well. We did kind of like a look back of some of the most impactful ads that this country has ever seen. So it's like literally
Okay.
going down nostalgia. Think of like all growing up and all the ads that you saw. So we spoke with an expert in the space on creative, and I'd like to call him a TV ad historian. And we explore topics like that, and we have just a range of topics. We have an episode on understanding Gen Z coming up. So if you are a marketer and you want to know what is happening with Gen Z. We just recently recorded that. That should be coming out within the next month or so. So yeah, keep on the lookout.
And thank you for sharing that again. And I will actually say this again, guys. I will be leaving the links down below. So please, don't make those links just stay there, and make use of them, right? And also, Senamile, right? You have another podcast with your partner, right? Which is colorful, right?
Yeah.
Can you share more about that?
Oh, this is my passion. So yes, Colorful is a podcast I started with my friend and colleague Stacey. She's a white woman living in Cape Town. And obviously, I'm a black woman living in Johannesburg, and we saw in our circles and in navigating it, me myself with the lived experience was that there was a lack of open and honest dialogue about race and how race shapes our experiences. So
Okay.
we wanted to explore that. We wanted to explore race privilege with the aim of creating understanding and eventually dismantling the systems that oppress people of color and talk about them, bring light to them. Also, holding space for personal stories to share experiences, because I think that in being able to put words to experiences, it has a healing quality. So I think we can't deny that the issue of race and racial discrimination is as old as time. And I think that it's something that we shouldn't pretend doesn't exist just because it's uncomfortable. So we started a podcast so that we could speak openly and honestly about that. And we have had some incredible guests come on sharing their personal stories. We've had some prolific authors come on sharing their personal stories. And the aim of this is obviously like, yeah, to challenge the structures that create systems that privilege others over others,
Okay.
but also to create empathy and understanding. So we do a good job of balancing out that conversation, which is very sensitive and inherently triggering, with a lot of empathy. And I'm very excited about that. So check out Colorful as well on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Colorful Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay. And the links will be down below, right?
Yes.
And so basically, as you've mentioned, but I'll ask you again, right? What topics do you and your partner discuss, right?
Yeah.
And who listens to that to your it's your personal podcast, right? I
Mhm.
could say something, yeah. So who basically listens to it so that the guys can have a picture of it?
Yeah, sure. So the topics that we discuss are, I'd say like we discuss very nuanced topics. So we try bring nuance to things that, people don't really like engage with or understand when it comes to race. So for example, one of my favorite episodes that we've done is questioning the notion of hair and beauty. So how we define beauty through maybe even a Eurocentric lens that ends up oppressing young Black girls.
Okay,
We have done a very important episode recently with Darshni Padiachi, who's the head of transformation at Rand Merchant Bank, and we
okay,
were on the topic of workplace assimilation. And I think that it is one of the most impactful episodes we've ever had. Speaking about the notion of color blindness and refusing to acknowledge actually the ways in which we are different in corporate spaces. So I'd say most of our listeners, our podcast, we've been approached by two organizations to offer our podcast as resources for, their internal DEI
okay,
strata and DEI like sort of resource base. So that's been very exciting because we do want to take these conversations to corporate. So most of our listeners are, anybody who's so we have twofold. We have listeners who are white and want to begin to acquire the language and know that things haven't been feeling right, or want to be able to learn more and do better
okay,
with their privilege. And then we also have, audience who hears our stories and hears the personal stories and can stand up and say, actually, the same thing happened to me in a workplace. I felt like I
okay,
wasn't welcome by virtue of my race and culture, or this is what happened to me when I was in school, or this is my experiences in varsity. So we actually have a diverse audience. And so anybody who cares about race in this country and how race and colonialism and how it's shaped so many of our experiences, and people who care about the injustices of that and look at to challenge the systems of privilege should go ahead and give it a listen. I think we do a good job of engaging with empathy and tackling a subject matter that's ultimately very tough and divisive. We know the country that we live in. We do a good job of being honest about it. We don't believe in sanitizing the truth, but we also believe in delivering that message with empathy and ultimately looking to bridge divides and heal.
okay. And if you remember, I did mention to you that I have to commend you guys for that podcast, because it's quite it's one of the most toughest things that you would have to discuss in terms of the racial um you know so for that I have to say it again. I commend you guys for that. It's really really amazing that you guys decided to take that up on yourselves and started doing that. It's really really amazing. So I have to thank you guys for that. you
Thank
know
you. Thank you, Smayet.
and 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 also, Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about data and digital marketing?
No, I think I've just waxed lyrical about it all. So, yeah, just in the sense that yeah, there's a massive opportunity in the digital space. Trends are ever evolving. So my advice to marketers is to digital marketers is yeah, I think I don't need to say it. Um, you probably move along with the trends or whatever, but I want to say also things change and they change quickly. So get used to that flexibility, that whirlwind. That means that your job is exciting, but it also means your job is scary and stressful. So lean into that. It's a beautiful thing because you're the leaders in the space and we look to you of what's happening, what's not. But I can also acknowledge how that puts a weight of responsibility. So I'd say, yeah, that's all, other than all the other stuff I said. Kudos to you guys. I appreciate what you do, and I think it's important what you do.
And thank you for saying that, because you also did mention that um, the the digital marketing space and marketers are not recognized that much as they play a huge role in the society, in the whole world. I can't say in this country because literally in every part of the world, economies move because of the work done by the marketers on the back end. So I
Yeah.
have to actually say thank you for actually saying that. And so where can our listeners find you online, right? Or follow with your work?
Oh, please follow me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn right now. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and yeah, and that's pretty much it. Those are my no, not Twitter, TikTok. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So you can find me on there. It should be very easy to find me um on either of those platforms. Drop me a DM, engage with me. And yeah.
Okay. And I will be leaving the links, guys, down below to to those to our social media pages, right? And yeah, I have to thank you for joining me on today's podcast. Um, you've dropped a lot of value, and as I did mention, for someone that has been in the space for a year, right? It's quite impressive. Um, what you what you actually the value that you've managed to drop in this podcast interview, right? And also at the very same time, um, you mentioned that you are one person that loves to learn, right? And now I'm seeing that because I'm seeing that you've been learning and you have been taking notes, and not only taking notes, but you have been implementing those everything that you've been taking, which is the most important thing. So um,
Hey, it's been fun. I loved being on here. Um, thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing hour.